On the 30th of September 2005, the Jylland-Posten newspaper of Denmark made a 12 editorial publication depicting Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This publication sparked a worldwide demonstration and protest, especially in the Middle East, the Muslim countries, and Africa. In Nigeria, the ripple effect of that religious crisis happened in 2006, in January and in February. Unfortunately, on the 20th of February, in Bauchi State, Nigeria, where we have stayed for over 30 years, my family was attacked because we are Christians, minority Christians, living in the Muslim-dominated community. In that state crisis, my house was attacked. My mother was killed, my elder brother was killed, and my kid sister killed as well. They were all butchered, macheted, and burned to ashes beyond recognition. My house was also set on fire. It was burned to ashes with all properties. I was attacked too. I was caught mercilessly. I was brutalized. But today, I thank God that I'm alive to share this gory story. Unfortunately, I lost beloved ones, my family members, and everything my dad has ever worked for. After the crisis, I was so dejected, I was traumatized and depressed, and I have no option to live a better life again. But I thought to myself, what if I've died? What will become of me? And now that I'm alive, can't I make something positive out of my life? The incident that happened. So I was left with three options to live for. Number one option, of course, was probably to commit suicide because of the trauma I'm going through. I wanted to commit suicide and end my life. And on the second thought, the second option was, okay, this thing has happened to you, your family members, your beloved ones have been killed. You had no place to go, you have no one to run to. Why not retaliate, form a reprisal attack, and kill as many as you could in Bauchi State of Nigeria? That was the second option I felt that okay, I should do. Then the third option was, okay, this has happened to you. Why not accept it as fate and move ahead with your life? Why not try and forgive these people? Forgive yourself so that you can live a positive life. And I wait. And thank God today, I choose the third option. I forgive these evil perpetrators of the act. I forgive myself. I build resilience. And I became focused with life. Because I believe if I want to be positive and I want to achieve in life, I have to begin from somewhere. Yes, I've lost loved ones. I've lost everything. But life beholds before me to choose what I want to become henceforth. And thank God today, I'm a living witness of the incidents that happened sometimes in 2006. Why am I sharing my story? Anytime I share my story, I try to motivate people, especially youth out there. I try to encourage them. I try to make them see reason why they can live a positive life despite life-threatening issues that has befell them. No matter what you are going through out there as a youth, I want to tell you that you can always bounce back to life. You can always achieve the best you want to be in life. The people that killed my parents and burnt them to ashes beyond recognition are the same people I went back to meet and make peace with them. And as a matter of fact, created a peace club amongst them to promote peace in the community because I've chosen the path of peace. And I remember the word of Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Forgiveness is for the strong, the weak cannot forgive." I wanted to be strong for myself. I wanted to be strong for my community. I wanted to be strong for my other siblings. So I remained focused and I forgive those people that killed my parents. And today, I'm a better person. I'm even friends with many of them because I've chosen to make peace possible. So, after the incident, a lot of things happened. It was not easy storming the weather. It was not easy bouncing back to life. But I was resolute in my decision about life. That anywhere I found myself, anywhere I go, I will try to change the narrative of youth restiveness, to try to create that atmosphere that it is possible for youth to change their attitudinal behavior to a positive one. They can channel their energy to a positive cause and for community development. Today, there are a lot of youth out there that have terrible experiences. A lot of them have no options for life. Some have become hopeless. Some have no focus for life. But I always share my story to remind them, as I've said earlier, that honestly, there are many ways you can begin to create a positive change for your life. First of all, you just have to make sure you forgive yourself of whatever has happened to you. Forgive your evildoers. Build resilience among yourself. Build that faith within yourself and be hopeful. I want to tell you that no any other person will cry more than the bereaved. You are the one that will bounce back your life for yourself and by yourself. So I want to encourage you as you listen to my story that yes, it is possible that things, evil, terrible, gory things might have happened to you. But I tell you, you can bounce back with a better story from a bitter experience. Please, as you listen to me, begin to have a mindset of a positive attitude. Your act, your disposition out there can really change your community. You can start today. Sit down, do a reflection of life for yourself. Take stock of experiences and see how better you can get out of life for yourself, for your family, and for your community. I want to assure you, you can do it. If I can do it, honestly, you can do it. If I can lose beloved ones right in front of me, killed, burnt, I tell you, you too can bounce back to life from your life experiences. Thank you very much for listening to my story. It is a gory story, and I tell you, today, this is a success story for me. God bless you.
Hi, my name is Rukmini and I'm based in India, in Mumbai. I work in the corporate organization development and the peace building space, and identity-based conflicts are, of course, common in both of these areas. Since COVID hit, of course, it's been rather stark in every other area of life as well, particularly in India, where we're a country of over 1.3 billion people. And we went into a lockdown with practically no preparation and a 4-hour notice. It was announced at 8 p.m. local time, and by midnight, we were locked down. And that continued for over 3 months, much more in urban areas, of course. Now, identity polarization reared its ugly head rather early in the lockdown. And we fail to take into account the fact that as a country, we have millions of people that we term migrant laborers. Now, these are not migrants from another country, but they migrate from villages in India to cities to find work, largely as daily wage earners. Now, when our lockdown began, they weren't earning anymore and they could not afford to live in the cities. They usually paid a bare minimum wage, which means they don't have any savings. And as a result, we had millions, and estimates say that the number is well above 10 million people, of them quite literally on the roads trying to walk back home from the cities. Given that practically all modes of transport were disallowed then, the only way they had was to walk. And for some of them, that meant the journey was well over 1,000 kilometers long. Of course, civil society tried to step up to whatever extent was possible in terms of trying to organize food and other relief material. But with a pandemic raging and in the hot Indian summer, you can imagine how challenging this was for the migrants. The stories that emerged were heartrending, and they speak of how various forms of identity, be it gender, class, caste, religion, they leave people in a space of absolute disadvantage and despair. A very stark example of identity and economics making pawns of laborers was when a builders lobby, that's a lobby of powerful construction companies, approached one of our state governments, and they wanted to put a halt to migrant laborers leaving the state. Their argument and their fear was that once they leave, they may not want to come back. And then the builders won't be able to find cheap labor too, and their projects get impacted. Having said that, none of them offered to take care of their laborers during the lockdown. No one offered food or shelter or even bare minimum money to survive in a city. What was shocking was that the state government agreed with these lobbyists and they halted the movement of laborers. Still, there was a massive uproar online and they had to retract that decision. This is a picture that breaks my heart, and I'd like to read a poem that I had written about it. Look into the little one's eyes and tell him slavery does not exist anymore. Place your hand on your heart and promise him that his freedom will always be honored. Now look into the mirror and tell yourself that you told the truth. Do your eyes believe you? Even as the little one's future is sold to his father's masters, who dictate whether or not he deserves the luxury of a home. Look into the little one's eyes and tell him the future is inclusive. Place your hand on your heart and promise him that his choices matter. Now look into the mirror and keep looking, waiting in trust that the little one grows up believing all that you said as he is carried forth by a choiceless father. Do you have the courage to look into the little one's eyes? A dialogue-based initiative called Look into the Mirror was born out of this need to build capacity and courage so that we may be able to look into the eyes of another, regardless of their identity, and treat them with the respect they deserve as human beings. And while I'm talking about India, this is true for us across the globe. Over centuries, we've willfully co-created a system that has brought on climate change, rape of the planet, oppression of billions in the name of socio-political ideologies, pandemics of hunger and poverty that we're not even talking about. And when COVID exposed the intentions of this system across the world in varied forms, we noticed that the system draws out its claws in self-preservation. It attempts to blame and vilify a virus and avoids to take responsibility for what's happening in the world. The system is not out there. It lives in us. It lives as us. And it's time to take a long, hard look in the mirror and start shifting the system that is us. So this series of dialogue called Look into the Mirror is dedicated to inner truth and reconciliation. It's a service offering with a global intent and local focus. Currently, the initiative is being held online and it's open for participation by anyone from across the world. The invitation is to come into a structured dialogue process with courage in your heart and openness in your mind. The only ground rules are respect and authenticity. In this space, we do not promise ease, we guarantee discomfort. We do not promise answers. In fact, we hope to generate more questions. We do not and cannot promise peace, but we do strive to create an aspiration for it. We hope that in the long run, we will be able to leverage on multiple forms of capital, be it time or skills or networks, technical expertise, to be able to continue these dialogue spaces online and offline. And also, very importantly, to create community action projects locally that allow for local actions and extended conversations around identities and reconciliation around them. So far, in the last 4 months, we've dialogued around casteism in India, around the partition between India and Pakistan way back in 1947 and the collective trauma that it's left behind. We've spoken about racism in India. And we've spoken about the loss of and the need to reconcile with indigenous wisdom and worldviews. Each of these conversations have opened up huge potential for extended dialogues and, of course, inner work. You can look up these dialogue recordings on our YouTube channel, which is called Exult Solutions. And the reason we're taking an inside-out approach to truth and reconciliation is because no matter how much we patch the system outside, we carry our notional identities within us. The only way polarization can be remedied is by each one of us doing the much needed inner work, painful as it may seem. Of course, it's a lot of emotional labor, but it enables us to see the injustice that we mete out consciously or more often unconsciously to the people that we consider others. Once we begin to see that ugly truth, there is then a chance at reconciliation. It's a long road ahead, of course, but that's where 2020 has brought us all individually and collectively. So let's honor the opportunity at hand and volunteer to learn the lessons that we're being presented with. Thank you.
I wish to discuss the mixed identity of white informal settlements in South Africa. So before I start, and just to give some background and to contextualize, I am a PhD candidate in communication studies. So I'm in the final year of my PhD at the University of Johannesburg. And what my research focuses on is the role and impact of social media in white informal settlements in Gauteng. Gauteng being South Africa's financial capital and most densely populated province. So the reason I chose these communities is because I have access to them, I can speak Afrikaans, and they were happy and willing to contribute to my research. And also because white informal settlements in South Africa are truly understudied. They are hidden, and most people don't know they even exist. So I think to really delve into the mixed identity of white informal settlement residents and these communities, I should start with what I found to be the most profound theme of my PhD research, and that is what I refer to as the long arm of Facebook. So residents, my participants, would connect to certain groups on Facebook that are sympathetic to white poverty, sympathetic to white Afrikaans speaking people who are poor, and other Afrikaans cultural groups. And through these connections, they are able to elicit support and donations. This is a highly effective strategy for them. In fact, in certain communities, it results in daily, and if not daily, very frequent donation deliveries. So this is really where I can explain the mixed identity of white informal settlement residents. Is on the one hand, residents would, not all of them, but residents would engage in the practice of what is referred to as the pornography of poverty. So that is depicting poverty in its most aggressive, most excessive form. One scholar wrote it's a picture of the bulging stomach and the buzzing flies. And this practice, the aim of this is to pull at the heartstrings of potential donors and benefactors. So in these communities, residents would post pictures of themselves or of their children or maybe other children in the community with dirty hair and dirty faces and torn clothes, and then they would post these in these groups, and as a result they would get donations. So on the one hand, they do engage in this practice, but on the other hand, they express a deep sense of shame and embarrassment for being poor, for being white and poor, for being unemployed. And I think here the history of South Africa is really important to understand, because even though apartheid came to an end in 94, economic imbalance in the country is still hugely skewed in favor of South Africa's minority white population. So because of this, they would feel that they are almost blamed for being poor, mostly on social media, but that this would be attributed to them having weak character, substance abuse issues, alcoholism, laziness. And again, this is polarizing, because on the one hand, they are able to claim and leverage being white and poor, but on the other hand, they feel embarrassed about it. And as one participant explained to me, when you're on the inside, you lose your humanity for the outside. You are in a cage and you want to stay in that cage. And in this context, I wish to discuss the concept of social capital. And this is the aggregate, the value of a person's social networks and connections. And we distinguish between two types of social capital: bonding social capital and bridging social capital. And where bonding social capital are with your close reciprocal relationships, bridging social capital is loose associations, but that span across different socioeconomic spheres, and in this specific case, higher socioeconomic spheres. So it was believed for a long time that the poor lack social capital. In fact, this was even described as the missing link in explaining poverty, suggesting that the poor, the reason they are unable to accomplish upward mobility is because they lack social capital. But this has been found to not be the case. It's just that people who experience poverty, they lack the right kind of social capital, and this is bridging social capital. So they do not have access to people who are in a higher socioeconomic bracket, who could provide opportunity that is out of reach in their immediate circle. So this is very interesting, because in the communities that I study, and I studied 6 different communities, and I did 65 interviews with 95 participants, and I found that they do have bridging social capital. After all, they are able to connect with people who are better resourced and quite well resourced. And not only are they able to connect to them, they are able to leverage these relationships. They are able to tangibly benefit from these connections. But again, here comes the mixed identity of white informal settlements. Because on the one hand, yes, they are able to connect with people in a higher socioeconomic bracket. But on the other hand, there remains an imbalance. The relationship is not on an equal footing. And this is even described as the dark side of social capital, in the sense that the power imbalance remains between benefactor or donor and recipient. In other words, I am still poor. I am still white and poor. I still reside in an informal settlement. Yes, I'm able to connect with others that are better resourced, but only in that capacity. So it doesn't change the situation. Lastly, I want to touch on where social media comes into this identity and the mixed identity. I did not find that participants engage in the practice on social media of identity tourism, where they would represent themselves as someone of a different race or gender or religion. That they didn't do. So they either engaged in a way so that they could benefit from the photos that they would put up in terms of donations, eliciting donations, or they would just not show that side of themselves. So they wouldn't be open about the environment or where they reside. They would engage on the merit of sharing hobbies or interests or religion with the people from all over the world on Facebook predominantly. And I think the overall sense that I got was not a sense of this is where I am and this is my place in the world. It's more, this is who I need to be to survive, but I am deeply ashamed of it.
Hello, and welcome to my short talk. My name is Obialunanma Nnaobi. I'm CEO at Vilsquare. Vilsquare is a strategy and technology think tank based in Abuja, Nigeria. Part of the work we do is that we also run a makers hub out of a physical space in Abuja, as well as deploy mobile labs across Nigeria. So what I'm going to do today with you is talk about how the linkages between everyday peace building approaches that we've adopted with Vilsquare Makers Hub community and the social interventions that we have contributed to the COVID-19 pandemic and the lives of people. It all started in 2018 when we came up with a peace building idea for a national hackathon series. Now, our hub is open to creatives of all kinds. We have come up with a theory of change that says that if we assemble young people from diverse identity groups in safe, neutral spaces to learn about diversity, tolerance, and mutual respect, to understand the issues of potential conflict across their communities, and to actively participate in preferring practical solutions to them, then we will activate a critical mass of peace evangelists who will amplify this new learning in their home communities, who will improve awareness and understanding of diversity, reduce misperceptions and stereotypes that generate conflict, and ultimately, people who will contribute to national unity and development. So far, we've achieved a few milestones that I would like to share. So from when we set up the hub in 2018, we've held 3 editions of the National Hackathon Series in the Southwest, North Central, and Northwest of Nigeria. What happens at these programs is that we invite, first of all, there's an application process, and then we invite young people from across the country. So even though the program is held, for instance, in the North Central, it has participants from all over Nigeria. We try to get a gender balance. It's not often possible, like we've seen, but it's something that we're working on. We have mentors come in, we have outside guests. We also invite people from the media, from academia, from the government to talk about how to harness the strength of unity in our diversity. That's the big topic that we walk around. In November of 2019, we've also held an AI makeathon in Abuja, where we've worked towards applying instrumentation to traditional food preservation methods. In 2019, again in September, October up to November, we hosted an EnviroSyntax series, which is an exploratory science workshop series to schools in Abuja. So when I talked about one of the problems that we've had, or one of the challenges that we've had with the National Hackathon series and getting makers on board in our community, it is that the ratio of male to female is very unbalanced. There are a lot more male makers in our space than women. And the way to combat this, we believe, is by democratizing science education. So making sure or trying our best to see that everyone who is interested is able to get some STEM education. But how do we do this? It's by igniting interest in the STEMs with young people. Now, in May of 2020, we hosted a COVID-19 themed virtual art exhibition. This came about because a member of our community, who is a sculptor, was interested in doing something both with the arts community that she belongs to around the COVID-19 issue, but also wondering how to digitalize it. This virtual art exhibition here had 26 artists from across different visual arts genres. This exhibition spoke to the different issues around the pandemic, the lockdowns, issues of prevention, so physical distancing, wearing masks, and all that. It spoke to issues of frustration, with the loss of lives and the loss of economic power and things like that. It also spoke to physical distancing. We had over 4,000 guests from across the world based on the science outreaches, the STEM outreaches that we had done in the past to schools in Abuja. When the COVID-19 lockdowns began, research showed us that there were, in Nigeria alone, about 39 million secondary school students who were at home, had been affected by the pandemic. So what we did, our community of makers, who by this time, of course, were now all working remotely across the country, what we did was to design an e-learning platform, which we call Volt School. So Volt School is an online STEM education platform, initially designed for West Africa, for secondary school students in West Africa to support learning. It is inclusive. It supports asynchronous learning. If we have vulnerable groups like young girls who are faced with most of the house chores, they are able to learn at their own pace, perhaps when they're done with their chores. It's also adapted such that people who have hearing and visual impairments can use the platform. That's one of the things that we've tried very hard to do. If you have a digital device, if it's on 2G network, it will function. It is accessible. It's also, the videos in the school, in Volt School, are very light. So each video is about 5 MB. Another unique thing about Volt School for us is the social experience. So what we've done is to add a chat feature. So we want to see a more united continent, and we're hoping that Volt School will contribute to this. So I'm going to share a user video from Volt School. Right. So when we initially envisaged Vote School, it was 5 countries of Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and Liberia. And the curriculum that we're using is based on the West African education curriculum. Along the line, we realize from all the monitoring, evaluation, and learning that we're doing, we realize that we now have students from these initial 5 countries, but also from Mali, which is a French-speaking country, from South Sudan, and from Uganda. We understand that in South Sudan and in Uganda, NGOs are using Vote School to teach members of the refugee community, which we think is a great one here. Now, one of the really interesting things about Vote School is also the fact that everyone who's working on this project so far since we began is working remotely. So our team of engineers for the technical part, our teachers, our curriculum advisors, the quality assurance team, the graphics team, everyone is working remotely. It's very decentralized. We also have teachers, not just from Nigeria, but from Ghana and from Liberia at this point. Now, the challenge that we've had is that because it's all remote and we're all working online, one of the things that has happened is that the older generation of teachers, for instance, who have a lot of experience in the subject areas, who understand how the examination council marking schemes work, are unable to support us, even though they will be really interested in working on this project with us. But they do not have the requisite digital expertise or experience to contribute to this project. And we believe, or we think, that has been a huge loss for us, because the students have lost out on the value of the experience that these older teachers bring. We're hoping that we can do something about it, perhaps increase digital education, democratize that the way we've done for science education. But that is something that is still in the pipelines. So this is some of the work that we've done. This is some of the ways that we see tech hubs using Vilsquare as a model, contributing to peace building. I look forward to answering any questions in the Q&A session. I've also put the contact for the Makers Hub website there. We're on Twitter, on Facebook, Vilsquare. Please reach out if you have any questions, and I would be happy to respond.